Gold, 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 gold. You've heard me say that before, but this is not an advertisement. I've finally got Ira Bershatsky, the owner of OurGoldGuy, to come on the show. I've been wanting to interview him for a few months now, and we are talking recession, inflation, predictions for 2023, politics, as well as the big boys, how they operate, how to take them on, and how to know who you can trust when it comes to your pocketbook. And guess what? We actually land on quite a bit of hope. I say that every time because I really want to make sure that we do. But sometimes some interviews end up a lot more hopeful than I could have wished for. So stick around for this interview with Ira Bershatsky. And I'm going to ask him about his name too. There's got to be some coincidence to that. Or perhaps there are no coincidences. You are watching the Today with Kay show. I'm Kay Rubacek. Ira, thank you so much for finally coming on the show to talk with me, because I've been talking about you to all of my listeners for quite some time now. But I have to just start with probably perhaps the most obvious question. But your name is Ira, and it's the same IRA, individual retirement account, that people probably most often come to you for. Is that just a lucky coincidence, or has that been helpful, or has that just been made a bit of a chuckle for some of your customers?
All of the above. It's great, and I tell them, I go, that's my real name when I say it, and then we just move on to something else. So thank you for noticing that.
Great. Okay. Well, yes, let's move on to what's really important. But I thought, I want people to know, because that was the first thing that someone said to me. They said, Ira? Really? That's his name? I said, yes, it is. That's why you got to talk to him. Now, on your website, you talk about the best kept secret in the precious metals industry. Now, you say that, and I'm quoting here, that the best kept secret in the precious metals industry is that many American, you put in quotation marks, companies donate heavily to Democrats and often work with proxies of the Chinese Communist Party. I was not aware of this. You're saying this is the best kept secret. Tell us more about it, please.
That's true. There are many companies that, as a front, will say they're patriotic, or they'll have different celebrities, or I don't like to say right wing, but more conservative celebrities or politicians or media people on their website. In the meantime, wink and nod on the back end, they're donating to Democrats and to CCP, because that's where they see the money is. And it's always, the follow the money, always, for everything. And that's, what I'm seeing. And I belong to patriot groups here locally, and, I'm a patriot, and there's no, hiding that, and I don't donate to Democrats. In fact, as far as I know, I have never voted for a Democrat in my life. And when I see, even in an election where you have two choices and it's Democrat, I just skip over it.
There we go, friends. You can see right up front here who Ira Bershatsky is voting for, even. So this is full transparency. Thank you for that. Now, I did want to go into politics next, because on your website you talk about politics, finance, the economy. These are fundamental. Well, finance and economy and business are so fundamental to your business, but also to everyone's pocketbooks, right? But you say on the website that you have a section on politics, and I'm quoting you here again because I found this very interesting. in many ways, it's a shame that politics have to be involved in our day to day finances, but in our constitutional republic, there's no way around it. Can you talk a little bit more about that for people who may want to try and keep their politics out of their pocketbooks, or perhaps maybe they think that economics and politics are not as connected as perhaps they are?
They're very, very intertwined. In fact, today I was reading an article, and I think it just came out in the last couple of days, that the Biden administration is allowing financial advisors to have their customers invest in the ESG companies. A new rule just came out. So the fiduciary rule is that the financial advisors, the mutual funds, what have you, have to, the 401k plans have to invest in what's best for the customer. And when looking at this new rule, there's even, it's automatic. You have to almost opt out not to have the investment management company invest in the ESG. And there's a report, researcher, I forgot what university, said that the results for the ESG funds are lower than the non-ESG funds. So, being woke or whatever, I mean, you can see where the Biden administration is going with this. So that is very clearly and the tie-in between politics and investments in the economy.
So it sounds like that in so many ways, these policies have really can have a negative impact on our pocketbooks, and we may not even realize is how closely do you have to follow policy and politics to really be able to advise your customers properly?
I follow it very closely. I've got 42 years in experience. I was around with the Jimmy Carter stagflation and the crash of '87, 2008, the dot-com boom. I mean, keep going, forward as far as you like. So with my experience, I pass that along to my customers, and it helps them make their precious metals purchase decisions much better than if somebody who is a 25-year-old newbie. There's nothing wrong with being a 25-year-old newbie. I was one myself, but they just don't have that experience that I have.
Yes, that's right. You got to call it what it is. I think there's so much value in experience, and I mean, just recognizing where people are at and deciding what you need for wherever you're at, and anyone's point in life. And friends, you are listening to an interview with Ira Bershatsky, owner of OurGoldGuy.com. This is the Today with Kay show. I'm Kay Rubacek. We are going to be right back. How is your coffee supply? Is your coffee really 100% organic and roasted right here in the US? Well, Freedom First Coffee is. It's a gourmet coffee roasted in Victorian-era roasters in the heartland of the USA. Their tagline is, tastes like freedom. I do not know what freedom flavor exactly really is, but I can say it tastes great. I drink it myself. I would like to invite you to give it a try. Go to freedomfirstcoffee.com. That's freedomfirstcoffee.com. Use the promo code KAY for a discount, and that will also support this show. I like to say we vote with our dollars, so buying your coffee from Freedom First Coffee is a delicious way to vote for freedom. So, Ira, you've been doing this for more than 40 years, but now you've gone out on your own. So you've been working in the industry for more than 40 years, but you've actually formed your own company. And you say on your website that you decided to take on the big boys, and you actually launched your own company rather than continuing to work for the big companies. Can you just talk a bit about why you did that? What sort of prompted you to do that? And how did that change your life?
Oh, absolutely. So I've been in the business world 42 years. I was an institutional equities trader and compliance officer for over 3 decades. Got into precious metals about 7 years ago or so, and a couple of years ago started my own firm because I come from a regulated industry and I see what's out there. And just with these other firms even that I work for, the bait and switch and the telling that you have to talk facts. And I'm still registered. I'm registered with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and I'm the only person in the physical precious metals industry that I know of has that registration. which means if you remember the old Hebrew National commercials, I have to answer to an even higher authority. And which means everything I say has to be factual. Everything I do, I can't bait and switch. I have to have reasonable pricing. And the others don't need that. It's the Wild West out there. So I saw that and I said, it's all about the customer. It's not about the company. It's when I originally talk with people, first questions I ask are, why precious metals? What are you hoping they can do for you? It's all about the customer. It's not me. It's them. And then I guide them through and we make the best decisions together for the customer.
Yes, customer service first, really. There's so many examples of successful companies that have come about because they have put the customers first. And I think it's the same really in any industry. And those of us working in media, it's really if you put the audience first, you see a different result to when you just put what you want to say first. But if you really know what the audience is looking for, and if you listen to the audience, then it just makes such a big difference. So I see that listening to your customers would definitely be the best focus, really. I mean, really, that's the best focus for any business, isn't it? If we are customer centric. But can you talk a bit more about that bait and switch and what the you're saying that the other guys, it's the Wild West, they don't have to report. What is that?
Well, they're not regulated. The only regulation, and I'll put that in quotes, that they have is um, they're not regulated by a regulatory agency. So a company can set up, be physical precious metals, and they just have to follow the law, whatever it is. And if there's a complaint, it goes to the state attorney general. So there's no registration. They don't have to have any licensing. There's really nothing. And technically, either do I, but I do because, as I mentioned, to use all of that experience and to make sure that I'm following the letter of the law and the customer being first. And a lot of companies aren't like that because they don't have to be. So why do it if they don't have to be? I've made that choice to do that.
And we talked a little earlier about the Chinese Communist Party being connected to that some of these companies are proxies of the Chinese Communist Party in the precious metals industry. What I'm being a researcher of the Chinese Communist Party myself, I'm very familiar with it's really the communist system itself is really based on lies and deceit. So if there are industries that are working with them, they've often been compromised intentionally or unintentionally. So do you see that as being a connection when if there isn't regulation, does that leave a door open for foreign actors like the Chinese Communist Party to come into play, or do you think there's other things causing that?
I would guess so. I would guess that because I don't know the inner workings of my competitors. But the Chinese Communist Party has so many tentacles out there, and people don't even know. And when they hear about it, they're surprised. I mean, think of the land that's being bought, in North Dakota, South Dakota, the farmland by the Chinese Communist Party, the police stations they have set up in Canada and the U.S. That are really under the radar, and federal government's doing nothing about it, or the state governments are doing nothing about it, because it's money. Again, we go back to follow the money. The CCP has a lot of money flowing out there. I mean, look at the sports people. Look at the pro basketball players and things. They're all kowtowing to the CCP because they're the ones that provide a lot of the funding, a lot of the money, and they're making a lot of money off their products and off their the merchandise. So yeah, that's very very strong connection there.
Wow. So some of these companies are proxies or potentially could be proxies for the Chinese Communist Party, but they're calling themselves American, and we wouldn't know necessarily unless we do some digging.
That's correct.
What other misconceptions do you find that people have when they come to you about the economy, that you kind of feel that you have to maybe perhaps correct them on when they're coming to you having one sort of expectation, but what are you seeing there?
Well, you can. I just did a presentation about this to one of my local patriot groups a couple of weeks ago. That if you go back even 50 years to the early 70s, so the stock market, the Dow Jones, if you want to use that as the proxy for the market, that will lead the economy by 6, 8, 9 months to a year. So if you looked at 1973, January of 73, the Dow hit an all-time high of 1,051. That was the full number, 1,051. And what happened 6, 8, 9 months later? You had the Arab oil embargo, the economy tanked. And the Dow Jones bottomed in the middle of 1975. And what happened? It increased for the next 8, 9 months. And then the economy, had come out of that deep recession, which the interesting thing about that 1975 recession, which people don't know, is that it was the first post World War II recession where white collar people got laid off, because it's always been blue collar people. The Fed raises interest rates, and then the appliances don't get sold, the housing slows down, cars don't get sold, so it's a lot of layoffs that way with the blue collar people, and then the white collar people weren't getting laid off, so they were. So the example I just mentioned, it happened again, 1979, happened, 1979 and 80, and then dot-com boom, and I mentioned those things before. And so now, let's fast forward to today. What are you seeing? Talk about the gaslighting or getting gaslit or whatever it is. All you're seeing is recession in middle of 2023, recession middle of 2023, layoffs, right? Well, if you look, the stock market bottomed in September. It's been up for 2 months in a row. And you had 2 down quarters in a row of GDP back in the summer, I think spring, summer, and that until the Democratic politicians came in and their proxies and media, what have you, it's not a recession. No, it is. It has been since those records have been kept. And then in the most recent quarter, I think it was a summer quarter, you're seeing the GDP went up 2.6%. Oh, look, it's increasing. Well, dig down into the numbers that people don't do. Most of that came from net exports from the federal government, selling material to Ukraine, selling energy, oil, gas, what have you, overseas to Europe. Take that out, and the economy really didn't do much. And you're looking at the layoffs now. A lot of the tech companies, a lot of other companies. Well, there's a layoff, so we'll have recession 6 months from now. The layoffs aren't 6 months from now. The layoffs are now. And so I believe we're in the recession now. And in 6 months, we're not going to have the recession. We're going to be coming out of it. So what does that do for precious metals? Well, again, historically, as the Dow, believe it or not, actually went up a bit, the precious metals went up. Between 2008 and 2011, the gold doubled in price, silver doubled in price. And if you go back, you can see the Dow bottomed in, I think it was March of 2009. So you see, even though the stock market kind of was sideways, went up, the metals went up. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. We saw that in 2016 with Trump in office. Over 4 years, the metals went up in price and the stock market went up in price. So metals, though, are a great hedge when the stock market does decline. So you're getting the benefit of both. When the stock market's going up, there you are. Sometimes the metals will go up in price as well. And when the stock market drops, the metals usually hang in there or even go up a little higher. So that's many of the benefits of physical precious metals.
Okay, so that's a great little history lesson there. That's excellent. I think we have to keep looking back to history, and when you look at those trends, and then you parallel to where we are now, then it can really give us a lot of advice if we're looking at the right history. That is. Now, I wanted to ask you your predictions for 2023. You've given a few indicators there. Is there anything else that you can add that you're seeing, whether it's in precious metals or the economy or the recession? I mean, that's actually very hopeful. What you've just said. Anything else you can add to that for 2023?
Well, people ask, and I know you phrase it a little differently. To ask, well, what is my prediction, or what do I see coming? I go, my crystal ball is in the drawer, and I haven't looked at it. But as you say with the patterns repeat themselves. Behavioral finance. People, are going to react the same way, as things move along. One of the other things I'm seeing is, if it still is, the inverted yield curve, meaning the shorter term interest rates are higher than the longer term interest rates. Over 55 years or longer, that usually means recession, and that happened a few months ago. So that's what we're seeing. And again, my thought, if you will, or my suggestion, what have you, is, we'll be coming out of this in 6 months with the economy, and that's just a guess. So the
I
crystal
guess.
ball in the drawer.
Yes, I think that's wise. I like that crystal ball still in the drawer. I don't pull mine out. I don't have one. And I hate saying predictions, but it is something that we all want to look at and just try and think ahead. And especially from those people who follow this so closely and live and breathe these things, I felt I just have to ask. And now,
No, that's fine.
okay, now based on that, without the crystal ball, how do you think that translates to just the everyday American and their pocketbooks, whether they're blue collar or white collar workers? How do you see that translating into just general life based on these trends for next year?
Next year it will get better. And one of the things that people ask me about is the U.S. dollar. Well, the U.S. dollar is at 20-year highs, and that's not good for metals, and that's not good for other things. And um, what I tell my customers is it can't be sustained because there are many companies, Procter and Gamble, et cetera, that do a lot of um, sales overseas. And when our dollar is strong, their earnings from the overseas sales go down. And that can't be sustained either. And now what you're seeing over the last couple of weeks, month or so, is the dollar starting to come off of its highs. And when it does that, the metals go up like they're doing today, and it helps the international companies. So again, that as the dollar comes down, I think a few months from now you're going to see things in a better place. Inflation, I know you didn't ask for that specifically. One of the things about inflation is once it gets going, it gets going. Is it starting to moderate? Perhaps. So maybe people have to put on their seatbelts, and unfortunately, it's we're seeing a lot of prices go up, or they can continue going up potentially. But as the Federal Reserve raises the interest rates, that should moderate a bit. So it's going to be tough for a few months. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. I'm optimistic that by the second, third quarter of next year, things will be a bit better. And that'll be coincidentally, there's no coincidences, right before the election season, the primary election season happens. So there you go. Politics, economy, everything tied together, just as you mentioned at the top of our discussion.
Yes, they are so intertwined, aren't they? And I mean,
Yes.
something that you mentioned on your website, I talk about this too, is the nation being in turmoil. So if we're potentially heading out of a recession, maybe seeing the other end of it and heading into an election cycle, where could this be a bit of a reduction of turmoil in society too, possibly?
No, uh, there's just too much divisiveness, and even with Twitter, right, with Elon Musk, the left, they just won't tolerate it. It's because their narrative is being challenged, so they're saying all sorts of misinformation. It's like, hello, what do they call that? Transferring or something. They're the ones that have had the misinformation for the last few years. So that's what we're seeing, and so I'm again optimistic for later on, for next year, and um, from there.
Yes, yeah. I think being optimistic is so important, but having some trends to look at and having that data is very reassuring, and I thank you for that. And I
Mhm.
think the divisiveness, I don't know where that's going to land, but you mentioned like the left seeing the narratives being pulled apart, and I was talking with a colleague today about how it's just so challenging for people who, when they realize that they've been lied to, is one thing. That's a painful process, but it's actually, I think it's worse for people when they realize that they have been part of a lie and perpetuating a lie and false narratives. I know that's slightly off topic, but I thought you brought that up, and it was something I'd been discussing with a colleague today. Just how do we reconcile some of this divisiveness and help people face some of these truths, because it's really quite painful, I think, especially for those that have been part of spreading that a lot of that sort of hateful misinformation.
It's going to be painful for everyone, as because if you want to say, the left and their narrative is going to be in the death throes as more free speech comes out there, especially on Twitter, and they're not going to be happy about it, and they're going to thresh about, and that's the way we're going to be seeing it. So it can only be beneficial. because right now there is the divisiveness, and I'm optimistic it will, hopefully decline, but I'm not exactly sure about that. We'll have to wait and see, how it plays out. But I believe everything is a pendulum, and the pendulum swung way to the left, and they're misinformation, and they're controlling the narrative, and now the pendulum is moving back. So we'll see how that goes.
I prefer the pendulum to the crystal ball concept. That's great. Yeah, yeah, I'll take that one.
You can have it.
Ira, it's really been a pleasure. And for friends, we didn't get into a lot of the details of gold talk that you can talk to with Ira directly. You just go to OurGoldGuy.com and make an appointment to talk to him directly. One of the things that I really like about your service, Ira, is that customers get you. Is that correct? They're not getting a salesperson or a telemarketer. Am I right with that?
That's correct. They get to talk with me, the owner of the company, and I don't do any salesman stuff. And the way we're chatting today is the way I chat with people. And someone asked me about that. How do I approach things? And I said, well, I talk to people, as I'm in their living room. And they say, well, what do you say? I go, nice couch. So, but it's just that's that you won't get any salesman stuff here. I just talk facts. I just talk what's beneficial for them, and how we can work together, to help them and in diversifying their portfolios and their investments.
Excellent. And I think that is what people need, is that we need just down to earth advice from people who know what they are talking about. So any final words of wisdom for people out there who are feeling nervous about the economy, they're not sure what to do, maybe they're going to call you about gold, but any other words of wisdom that you can give to them to give them a bit of reassurance?
Just having physical precious metals in their portfolios is great diversification. I've heard people use the term peace of mind, which is very encouraging for me. So just look forward and know that we'll get through this at some point. It's going to be a little tough, but be optimistic, and we'll get out of this on the other side very, very well and better positioned than before.
Friends, you have been listening to an interview with Ira Bershatsky, the owner of OurGoldGuy.com. If you haven't checked it out, please go to the website and talk to Ira. And take the advice too. Follow the pendulum. Don't look for the crystal ball. Look at history. Look at the trends. Talk to people who know, who've done their research, and talk to many people. Get advice from different advisors and keep your mind open, and help those who have been, maybe a bit closed off and might be in a bit of pain as they're seeing some of these truths being revealed out in the world. I'm going to be seeing where this pendulum swings to next year, but I am so encouraged to hear that we may be on the other side of a lot of pain, perhaps in 6 to 12 months. Let's see where we land. Thank you very much for watching the Today with Kay show. If you are on a podcast, please click the 5-star button, because that's what they like. Don't do anything less than that, because the algorithms don't like that. I'll never be offended if you don't give me any stars at all, but it's better to do 5 than anything else, 5 or none. And if you are on YouTube, thank you. Why don't you try Rumble? If you're on Rumble, do the like, subscribe, all of that stuff. Please like, share. I really appreciate you supporting the show, and I hope you enjoy all of the wonderful guests that I have and bringing to you every week. This is the Today with Kay show, and I'm Kay Rubacek.